Okay, Richard, this is James Parker. Thank you for sending me your golf swing for an evaluation. I appreciate it. Right, so I've just gone through your questionnaire that you filled out. So yeah, a few things. Obviously the standard that you're at, you're going around a golf course, you're shooting over 100. So there's a lot of stuff going on which just isn't working, right? There's just watching your action. You put down that you pull it and you push it. I would argue that you're also going to top a lot of shots. You're also going to hit a lot of shots fat. You're also going to struggle with distance a little bit, and obviously the swing pattern that you've got, you're going to struggle with the on-course shots as well. So, pulling and pushing, and also ball striking, hitting it fat and thin as well, I think would be the observation of the shot patterns. How would we diagnose those problems? Well, you pull and you push are coming from, and if we pull up your face on swing, let's do that. We can put some lines there. The video recording down the line, I would prefer you hitting golf shots. It's a little, I always want video of you hitting golf shots, but sometimes, you want an analysis, and you can't get out to the course, right? So I understand that. You can't get out to the range. So what I will say is the camera angle on the left-hand side is too close to the target line, right? I want the camera just outside your toe line and in line with the hand. So you can see the camera angle. I do this in yellow. The camera angle's coming in from this sort of angle, right? I want the camera coming in. If you do this in the future, you send me some videos in the future, you want to carry on. That's how I want the position. That's how I want the camera positioned, right? And also the camera at waist height, right? So I want the camera kind of looking into that rectangle, if you like. That's a good way of thinking about it. But because the camera isn't positioned properly, we can't really draw any lines. Normally I'd put a line through the club and a line through your right elbow, but because the camera isn't positioned properly, we can't really draw any lines and compare you to a pro. But anyway, I digress. We can still talk about things to change in your golf swing. There's no question about that. So how would we diagnose your problems? Your pull and your push, and your general ball striking, hitting it fat and thin. Well, low point is always going to be an issue because your head's moving so much to the right. Okay, so if we put a little circle where the center of your shoulders is, that yellow circle, you can see just how much that moves in the takeaway and in the backswing, right? So your head's moved a lot, and then as you come down, you move it back to where it was to get to impact, and then sort of after impact comes up and forward. That's fine, but it's really the backswing which is the problem, right? That there's too much head movement, and the center of your shoulders, which should stay in place. We just want to pivot around our shoulder, the center of our shoulders and the center of our hips, right? Put another little circle there, right? We just want to build a golf swing, certainly the backswing, where we just pivoting around those two positions. So you can see big sort of head movement. So we've got one of those circles which is moving, which is also always going to affect your ball striking, right? And your low point control. Path, again, from this angle, it's difficult to tell the path, but let's just say, for argument's sake, that that's the target line going out there. There's your toe line. So as you come down, you kind of attack it from the inside. No, you kind of somewhat attack it from the inside, I guess. But a lot of club face rotation. You can see, I'll do this in red. You can see just how open the club face is there. and then through impact, just before impact, you see just how open that club face is. Very open just post impact, and then you start to really turn it over. So if we look at the club face when it exits up there, just how much that club face has rotated over. So we're going from a very open position on the way down. Certainly this camera shot, this particular swing, the club face is wide open through impact, so you're going to hit one of those shots which you describe as a push. I would describe it as a slice. But on other swings, you could actually get that club face whipping over more, right? Because there's so much rotation of it going on. I would describe your problems as coming from low point control and face to path relationship. That's how I would diagnose your two problems, right? So if we were going to decide how to, if we were working together in person and we were going to go and spend an hour on the range and talk about this and make it better, right? What changes would need to take place to positively alter the shot pattern, right? That's probably the best way of thinking about it. Let's get a model down the line, right? So if we put some lines, I'll tell you what, we'll leave that off because you haven't got the lines, but we'll put some, what we'll do is, we first of all, we want to start building a consistent swing, right? So we've got to understand what a consistent swing is, okay? So generally speaking, a couple of the patterns that you see, a couple of definite patterns that you see the pros make, and this is Mac O'Grady on the right side, right? And we talk about, going up from through the positions from P1, position 1 at the setup, to position 2 where the shaft's parallel with the ground, to position 3 where now your left arm's parallel with the ground. There's a few things that I would describe how he does it compared to how you do it. First of all, in your takeaway, your hands are not moving inward enough, right? So you've got a lot of forearm rotation. So you've got a lot of rotation of this forearm, which opens the face immediately. And then you get to here and you can see just how open that face is, right? But again, that might just be because of the camera angle, right? We want the camera angle, you can see here, right? Where that camera's positioned, it would be right sort of around there, about waist height, and going straight down the line of the hands, right? That's where you want to position the camera, okay? So the first thing I would say is we've got to move our hands inward more, right? And by inward, I just mean inward of your toe line. So if that yellow line is your toe line, right, I want you to start moving your hands inward along the red line as we start taking the club away, right? And then with that, then what you'll start to see at P3 there is where your arm is more across your chest, right? So your arm's more across the chest and the hands are kind of dissecting the base of the right bicep. What you're doing there at that point is your hands are maybe in the middle of your chest, and your left arm, which is a little bit bent, is kind of straight. A little bit bent, but kind of straight along that line from your shoulder to your wrist, if you like. My point is, it's not inward, right? It's not along this blue line, right? So that's the point. That's what I would work on. That's one of the things I would work on. Looking from the down the line view to start building a consistent swing would be the hands have to move inward more, right? And the second thing would be the left shoulder has to move down more, right? So if we stop him halfway back, then we draw a line down his shoulders. Now you're hitting a driver, right? So the angles are going to be a little bit different. But if we stop you halfway back, your left shoulder is almost as high as your right shoulder, right? We need that left shoulder moving down more. Okay, so they're the two things, just looking from a down the line view on the backswing, that if we're going to build a more consistent golf swing, something that all the pros do, doesn't matter how they get there or how they do it, right, at that position, they've all got their left shoulder a lot lower than what you have, and they've also got their left arm more across their chest, right? So to get there, all you're going to have to do is practice getting a club along your toe line, that would be the blue line, and then practice moving your hands more inward, right, along the yellow line. Your hands at the moment are moving along the red line, which is actually away from your body. There, you see. And because your left shoulder's moving so high, that's kind of contributing to rolling the club face, and the club face gets very open at that point. Right, you look at Mac O'Grady at P2, right, which is shaft parallel with the ground. You can see that club face is not only kind of in line with his hands, but also the club face kind of similar to his spine angle. Right, you look at your club face there and you look at your spine angle, the two are completely different, right? So they're the two things, they're the, just looking down the line, we need to bend backwards more. Sorry, we need to tilt left more, right? That's the best way of looking at it from the down the line view, and that's what I would change, just to give you a better backswing. I would work on building a consistent swing in a way where I'd want you to do this, this, and this in your backswing to get you in a better position to then come down and hit the ball, right? I think that's where it's got to. That's where the instruction has got to lead to. So if we get you from face on, so Mac O'Grady from face on, and we draw some lines, right? Line next to your left ear, line next to your left hip, right hip, left hip, right hip. So what we're looking at from this angle would be moving off the ball, right? We want to keep the head relatively centered. But if we do this in yellow, so if we draw a line, a circle, center of his shoulders, a circle, center of his hips, you can see during the backswing those circles don't move, right? The center of his body, he's pivoted around the center of those, the center of his body, right? The two centers, the center of your hips, center of your shoulders, right? So he's managed to move his body, contort his body in a way where those centers don't move, right? Now what's going on in your backswing is that, and we'll do this in a little yellow circle where the center of your shoulders are, center of your hips down below. So what you're doing as you go back is your upper body is moving too far to the right, right? So again, we want to build a consistent golf swing. We want to build a decent backswing to be able to give yourself a chance of coming down and hitting the ball better. The one thing that we point out there is, well, the head's moved too far to the right. So why is the head moved too far to the right? Well, again, if you look at how high your left shoulder is, maybe do this in blue. If we look at his left shoulder, it's down there in blue. You look at your left shoulder, it's up there in blue, right? So again, from both angles, we've really detected that the left shoulder not moving down is really playing its part on not having good structure to your backswing, right? The other thing with regards to The moving the left shoulder down is part of tilting to the left. All right. The other part is you can see how his upper spine here. And we'll do this in blue. That's kind of just going up and down, right? His upper back, right? So he gets to the position there where. You look at his back, it's kind of his chest is pointing over here now, and therefore his back can be pretty up and down. His upper back can be pretty much up and down in that blue line. I would describe your chest as being down here, and therefore your back's being up there, pointing up there, and therefore your upper spine angle is something like that, right? So not only do we want the hands to move inward, right, inward of your toe line, not only do we want your left shoulder to move down so that you can tilt left more, we also need you to get your back bending backwards, right? When you're set up to it there, you're bent forwards, right? Your chest is pointing down at the ball, okay? But by the time you get to the top of your swing, your chest has got to be pointing up here somewhere, right? So you want to feel as though your back's pointing this way. So you got to feel as though your back is at that angle, right? At the red line, not the blue line. Okay. So there just so happens to be a guy that used to play on tour who won a major, I think he won 10 times on the PGA Tour, a guy named Steve Elkington, right? And somebody at some point kind of, I don't know, I think this looks like it's off the telly, so somebody must have recorded it on the television. But this is Steve Elkington, I think maybe in 2003, 2004, just practicing what he needs to do more of in his swing. So if you... if I was going to tell you to try and do more of something, it would be practicing doing that. So, not only is his left shoulder down, you can clearly see that. His spine now, he's actually bending backwards that way, right? So his chest is pointing up there, his left shoulder's low, and his back is pointing down here. Now, that's the opposite to what you were doing, right? Your chest was pointing down here, your back's pointing up there, and your spine angles over that way, right? So that's how I would practice changing the structure of what your body's your spine, right? You need to learn how the spine should be moving, right? Understanding the two central points, right? Center of your shoulders and center of your hips. If we do that with him, center of shoulders, center of hips. Don't forget your head moves to the right. As soon as you start bending backwards more and moving your left shoulder down more, his spine angle now goes. His spine angle now going that way. So I would try to do that. I would try and get your back in that position. By doing that, you're going to feel as though your chest is pointing upwards more, right, instead of pointing down on the backswing. That would be a good way of thinking about it. And by doing that, by feeling as though you're having your chest pointing up, you'll have bent your spine backwards. Right, bend backwards. That's the best way of explaining it, I think. So hands move inward more, left shoulder down, bend backwards to try and emulate that position on the left side. If we compare that on the left side to where you are, you can see complete opposites, right? Complete opposites. Your upper spine is this way, his upper spine is that way, right? So that's what we're trying to emulate, right? And then I would, that's plenty to think about. I mean, I've put a little note on my little pad here that, to not only work on those things, but then understand where we want to be at impact. Well, I don't think, just purely because, as you come down, there's a lot of bends going on, but all these bends are kind of a byproduct of, I mean, yes, we need to train your arms, we need to build structure in your arms and understand and be aware of what that structure is doing, but just moving your spine in a decent fashion will affect the arm structure, will affect the wrist structure. That's without question. All right. So just looking at my notes here, so we've covered move left shoulder down, hands have got to move inward more, left arm has to be more inward at P3, right? We talked about that, and also practice the elk drill, right? It's as simple as that. So those three, if we're going to, like I said, if we were on the range, we've decided how we're going to, what changes need to take place, right, to alter your shot pattern, to build you a more consistent swing, to hit the ball consistently well. We talked about what we've got to change doing that, but then how we're going to implement that change. Well, definitely lots of slow motion swings, lots of just making those movement patterns without hitting shots necessarily, just getting used to what you're doing. Half swings, slow swings, swings in the mirror so you can see yourself, and also get the camera out to check your progress, to check that you're doing all these things as well, right? You've got to practice with feedback. That's important. So that's it, mate. Those few things. If you have any questions or comments, just shoot me over an email. Thanks, Richard.